and we have all members of council present. We have our CAO, Rob Philpott, and we have Director Aaron McDonald, the engineer from Tech Services, and Linda Stevenson with us tonight, and we have Brian Harlick here on the controls on the left, and we'd like to say hello to the viewing audience on YouTube, and I understand there'll be some media members watching as well, so we will keep going and right into the agenda, and at this point I'll turn it over to the Chair of Planning Board Committee, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we will call the Planning Board meeting to order. The agenda was circulated, but there is an amended agenda here, so we should have a motion to approve the amended agenda, and the item that was added there was a mobile sales establishment request for High on the Hog. So if we could have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Barb and seconded by Councillor Carey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. So we'll move right into the first agenda item, 33 and 34, Langhill Court discretionary use. The supporting explanation. The purpose of the discretionary use is to allow a 8-unit row house on lot 60-6 and a 8-unit row house on lot 20-7 in the medium density residential R3 zone. Row house means a building that is divided into 3 or more vertically adjacent joined dwelling units separated by a vertical wall, with each unit being constructed directly on grade. Row houses do not require individual public utilities for each unit, street frontage, and cannot be subdivided. So the background. An application was received from Abbott and Langhill Plumbing and Heating and Electrical Inc. for 33 and 34 Langhill Court, PID number 70110, lot 20-6 and 20-7. This application will require City Council approval to allow an 8-unit row house on each lot as a discretionary use in the medium density R3 zone. And the map is attached there showing the lot 20-7 and 20-6. The report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw: when planning board reviews a discretionary use, it shall consider the following general criteria as applicable. Conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, the zoning bylaw. Staff comment: the discretionary use conforms to the zoning bylaw subject to council's approval. If council approves the discretionary use for an 8-unit row house on lot 20-6 and an 8-unit row house on lot 20-7, the applicant will be permitted to construct the row houses subject to the R3 development standards. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the discretionary use conforms to the official plan. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment: this site is suitable for a medium density residential land use. A public street and municipal services are available for this development. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment: the proposed development row house is compatible with the existing uses. The properties to the north and south are zoned manufactured home park residential R5. The properties to the east are zoned low-density mixed residential R2. The property to the west is located within the boundaries of the community of Linkletter and is currently being farmed. And there's a map that shows the zoning around the property as well there. E, any comments with residents or other interested persons. A public meeting was held on May 12, 2021. The public meeting notice was advertised in the April 28th edition of The Guardian. 11 letters were mailed to 9 property owners. Trevor Abbott spoke at the public meeting, providing an overview of the intent of the row house development. Staff comment: no written comments were received prior to the public meeting regarding this application. The development officer received a phone call from Paul Kelly of 55 McDonald Crescent. Mr. Kelly wanted to verify his understanding of the request from the applicant. No one other than the applicant spoke at the public meeting regarding the application. Adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, and parkland for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city has adequate water supply and sewage capacity to service the lots for the discretionary use 8-unit row house. The storm water will be directed to the storm drainage system on Langlo Court. Lot drainage plans are designed for these lots and the contractor will develop accordingly. There is a city park, Centennial Park, located within 600 meters of the property. Electrical services are provided by Maritime Electric. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, the proposed development does not impact on pedestrian vehicular access and safety. Langlo Court is a 8.8 meter local street with shoulders wide enough to accommodate pedestrian traffic. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, development is compatible with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Impact on city finances and budgets, no comments there. Other matters as specified by this bylaw, no comments there. Other matters as considered relevant, staff comment, both of these lots were granted a discretionary use approval for 8-unit row houses in October 22nd, 2018, that expired on October 22nd, 2019 under the previous landowners and McQuaid's. Staff review. The city staff supports the application from Abbott and Langlo Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, Inc. for PID number 70110, lot 20-6 and 20-7, to allow an 8-unit row house as a discretionary use at 33 and 34 Langlo Court. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. Planning board recommendation, the application from Abbott and Langlo Plumbing and Heating, Electrical, Inc. for 33 and 34 in Langlo Court, PID number 70110, lot 20-6 and 20-7, requesting 8-unit row house on each lot as discretionary use in medium density R3 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. And we would ask for a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. And we would open the floor for any comments or questions.
That will be voted on after this meeting, right? A special council meeting?
No, not till the,
It's not tonight?
the monthly meeting, I think.
Oh, June 1st. Is it?
Oh, yes, there's a special meeting attached to the June 1st committee meetings, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to state that I have no issue with it. This is basically reapproving something that was already approved and understood by the residents around there. So,
Seeing no, Councillor Durham.
And I just wanted to, I know the developers aren't here, but they were about a little under 2 years now, I guess, when they originally had their first request for another proposal, and it didn't quite go their way, and so they could have jumped ship and went somewhere else, and they didn't. They came back here and they compromised with what residents were kind of asking for, and I think that says a lot for the kind of developers they are. And just again, they're not here, but I just wanted to put out there that I think we all appreciate them doing work here in Summerside, and the fact that they came back and worked with residents there says a lot, and just wanted to thank them for that.
and I did talk to a couple of residents that are moving in there, and they said they're very good to work with and work for. So, good.
Any other comments, questions?
I just mentioned this, I don't think I have to declare a conflict because his mother and myself are first cousins,
Oh, I don't think there's a conflict there.
Janet Stewart. And, so I just wanted that for the record, so.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, don't see any questions, but call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Item number 2 on the agenda. is the zoning bylaw text amendments on the R4 development standards. So the supporting explanation, the purpose, the city has initiated a bylaw text amendment to R4 development standards to allow the opportunity of higher density developments in the high density residential R4 zone. Also, the definition of a duplex will be amended to allow the option of a duplex dwelling to be divided either horizontally or vertically. Presently, the current definition only allows the option of dividing horizontally. Background. Regarding the proposed R4 development standard amendments, the past number of years, staff have heard comments from developers indicating they can develop more apartment units per acre in Charlottetown versus Summerside. Considering the developers' comments and based on the recent demand for high-density housing with more than 18 units, staff completed a high-density housing planning review. High-density housing was researched on national, regional, and provincial levels. Staff-based comparisons among cities of comparable size across all three levels. It was determined that Summerside fell short on the allowable density per acre when comparing. Regarding the duplex definition amendment, a few property owners wishing to build 2 units, one behind the other, applied for building permits. The current definition of a duplex did not allow for duplex units to be located 1 unit behind the other. Staff recognized the definition was not intended to exclude a duplex where the units were located one behind the other. The revised definition clarifies that the units may be divided horizontally or vertically into 2 dwelling units. So the report, staff focused on comparisons of Charlottetown and Summerside, being as both are considered urban areas and both having the majority of high-density housing on PEI. It was determined that Summerside does require more land per unit than Charlottetown. Staff applied the density comparison Summerside versus Charlottetown to recent R4 developments over the past few years. The comparisons are based on assuming each unit is 93 square meters or 1,000 square feet. And the table below indicates recent builds in the Summerside area. I won't. Don't think I need to read this into the record. It's tabled there. And the current high density R4 1 acre 43,560 square feet lot required, for example, below. And I'll probably, after I read through all this, get Aaron to walk through some of this stuff with us, the drawings and stuff. But I'll continue reading this and then get the staff to comment on it. The revised definition of a duplex would allow 2 units to be located, one beside the other, one over the other, and one behind the other. The units may share common municipal services and cannot be subdivided into individual ownership. And the drawing is there with the example of 1 unit behind the other. A public meeting was held on May 12, 2021. The public meeting notice and the amendments were advertised in the April 28th edition of The Guardian as well. The city social media platforms, the city website, city Facebook page, and city Twitter account. Hard copies of the amendment were available at the public meeting. Barry Ford, 539 Sheen Street, spoke at the meeting. Mr. Ford inquired about the notification process and wanted to know why letters were not sent out to individual neighbors and why the public meeting ad was not published in the Journal Pioneer. Mr. Ford had a question regarding the difference of square footage in regards to lot coverage area being increased from 30 to 35%, but could not locate his calculations for specific questions. Staff advised the notification process for the zoning bylaw text amendment was different than that for zoning bylaw map amendment. Text amendments are not property specifics. Therefore, notification is satisfied by means of media ad in our local paper. The Guardian newspaper is a daily local newspaper, whereas the Journal is a weekly newspaper. The Guardian newspaper is utilized to ensure consistency for public meeting notification. Kim Gallant Sheheb, 23 Greenwood Drive, also spoke at the meeting. She inquired as to how the proposed text amendment, specifically how the proposed R4 amendments, would impact a property near her that was recently rezoned R4. Staff indicated that the proposed amendments would apply to any R4 property, effective the date of the amendments being approved by the province. Mayor and Council also asked questions, and their questions are addressed throughout the report. Staff overview. City staff supports the proposed text amendments to the R4 development standards and the revision of the definition of a duplex, the amendments attached. As per section 5.10 subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to the council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. The planning board recommendation, the proposed text amendment to the City of Summerside zoning bylaw for R4 development standards and the revision of the definition of a duplex, amendments attached, be recommended to be approved by council. I don't know, I suppose I will read into the record the zoning bylaw text amendment. Proposed amendment to section 19.5B, development standards, high density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the amendments is to allow the opportunity of higher density developments in the high density residential R4 zone. So amendment 1, the floor area ratio, we would be deleting 0.6 and with a bonus of up to 0.25 for every enclosed parking space below the main building or within an attached garage, as long as its roof is landscaped and is accessible to the residents. And we would be inserting 0.08 in there. Amendment 2, the lot coverage, delete 30% and insert 35%. Amendment 3, new density bonus, insert density bonus at 20% of the total number of units, provided a minimum of 75% of the required parking is located underground or at grade within the main building footprint. And the development standards, 19.5A, for each row house and townhouse dwelling unit, the standards in section 17.5 shall apply. And B, for apartment buildings and nursing care facilities, the following standards will apply. So I'll read these in meters. The R4 zone, the lot area, 930 meters, the lot depth, 30 meters, the frontage, 30 meters, front yard, 6 meters, side yard, 4 meters, rear yard, 5 meters, maximum height, 14 meters, the flankish yards, 5 meters. The floor area ratio would be 0.8% of the main building, is a maximum. The lot coverage, maximum of 35% main building, not counting any attached garage, as long as the top surface is landscaped and is accessible to building residents. The maximum building height may be higher than 14 meters at council's discretion. Density bonus, bonus of 20% on total number of units, provided a minimum of 75% of the required parking is located underground or at grade within the main building footprint. The proposed amendment, section 2, bylaw definition of duplex. The purpose of the amendment is to allow the option of a duplex dwelling to be divided horizontally or vertically. The proposed new definition to replace the current definition. Amendment 4, duplex means a building that is divided either horizontally or vertically into 2 dwelling units. The units may share common municipal services and shall not be subdivided into individual ownership. So with that, we would ask for a mover and seconder, and then we'll open the floor for discussion, ask staff to comment on those. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. So maybe Director Aaron, maybe just get you to walk through those diagrams and give us some clarity around those.
Sure, if we just look at the highlighted parts, I guess we had mentioned last time we were here, and we threw around some numbers, and we told you we'd come back with some examples. As we mentioned, our rules were evolved probably 20, 25 years ago, 3 planners ago, and the category of larger than 24 units, like, hadn't been, predominantly it's been 12 and 20 units. We didn't have anything much bigger than that until the last 4 or 5 years. So that's where some of those examples were coming in, which really never really tested that section of the of our rules. So examples you have there in front of you. If we look at the top one is down at Mackenzie, corner of Mackenzie Water, highlighted in blue is we have it's a 64 units, and using the 0.6 or 60% of the lot that's allowed to be developed, we're allowed 47 units. But again, they got extra units because they had parking on the ground floor, using the 0.6 category. Now, if we jump that to 0.8 category, you'd be allowed 63 units. The 63 units, when we work out Charlottetown's numbers, is also exactly 63 units. And if you compare to what we had in the old town before the city changed the rules of the amalgamation, if we used the old former town rules, you would have been allowed to build 67 units. So when the city became a city, that section of the category became tighter by going down to 0.6. If we go to the next one is on at the top of McEwen. It's a 3-story, there's 24 units there. Using our 0.6 rule, you could get up to 34 units. In Charlottetown, the same, you could get 45 units. So by adjusting our 0.6 to 0.8, we get 45 as well. If we go across, we look at our rules according to the old town, you would have gotten 46. So the 0.8 appears to be similar to Charlottetown and similar to our old town. The next one was a total of, there was 2 buildings built on Pope Road for a total of 52 units. Again, using our 0.6, you'd have 68 units. Again, 91, the same, you get 91 units in Charlottetown. By adjusting ours to 0.8, it matches that 91. In the old town, we had 80. So it's in the ballpark. It's larger than what we currently would allow. Also, we have another one down on Russell Street, even just this year. They ended up building 2 8-unit buildings for a total of 16. Our rules would have allowed 20 units. If we change our rules to 0.8, it would allow up to 27 units, which would match Charlottetown. Our old town would have been 23. So in all instances, going from 0.6 up to 0.8 gets us in line with Charlottetown and closer to in line with what we had in the old town, again, for the stuff that's larger than 12-unit buildings.
So they only asked for the 16 units?
Well, no, they actually come in with a building for 24, but it couldn't fit there. And they already had a 24-unit building that they built somewhere else. It couldn't fit here. They had an 8-unit building, a set of drawings already done. So they said, well, we already have this set of drawings, we can put 2 of these on there. So they put 2 8-unit buildings on there.
But how if they come in, they can put 27?
If we revise this, they would be allowed to fit their original 24 that they put on. One building. Which again, there's other pros and cons to that. One building would have been farther away from the boundaries, perhaps. You know, they still would have to provide the same number of parking, but
Less
it would
costly
be
to build?
they would probably argue, or should say argue, they would probably propose, yes, it's cheaper to go higher than to go 2 separate foundations and add another layer on top, yes. But you'd still be building a bigger foundation, but yes, cheaper to build 1 larger building than 2 smaller buildings. Yeah.
It would only be allowed to go 4 stories?
Correct.
Right.
Yep. Now, they would have just had to go 3 stories of 8,
Yeah.
3 8's 24. But, so that kind of leads you to the next little sketch down below. We can go back and explain them all. That staff just took a typical lot and said, this is a 1-acre lot. What does our rules allow? It's hard to see, but the hash mark or the shading underneath is the setback from all the property lines. So they could build a building anywhere in there up to the property lines. The paving is shown 1 meter away from the parking lots, because we make parking lots stay 1 meter away from the, so we're basically saying you could build a 4-story building in this area, in this zone. So again, if we went down, I hate to say it's a lot of math again, but if you go up just a touch, oh, it can still be seen there, you have to look closely at the top. So basically, as somebody had mentioned, an acre's got like 43,000 square feet. So a third of that is 13,000. That's how much of the lot you'd be allowed to cover. So you can see there's a footprint there, that yellow footprint is basically a third of the lot. That's how much you can cover under our current rules. Floor area ratio is 0.6 is allowed, 26,000. So we just done some math here and said, okay, if 32 units at 8 per unit is typically, so we got 4 floors of 8, 4 8's 32. We're working out to 815 square feet per unit. So when you see, there's the building on there, we provided 30, so there's 32 units. You require 1 parking stall. So we made room for 32 parking stalls, made 4 extra for visitors, which they wouldn't have to require, but just make sure we had a few extra. But that in green is the size of a lot that you'd be required. So you can see the area to the right is not needed, but that's what means that's our rules are requiring them a larger lot than what's, we're just trying to give you an example that, and this is what happened when we looked at a couple of lots, when people come in with their building and they're saying, well, this is the size of lot we need. And to fit that building, we said, no, you need a lot this much bigger. So if they were able to buy land, or they're chunking out a parcel out of a larger parcel, they acquired more land to fit their building on. But that's how our requirements are basically showing you that we need bigger lots to fit the same type of building as other jurisdictions.
Aaron, last week, a couple of weeks ago, we dealt with one in Willow and Elm and Prairie.
Yes.
I'm just wondering where that would fit now in this, because they talked about whether to go with 3 8s or 124, and one building wouldn't fit. But with this new change, it might?
I think they're more pre-planning ahead. They knew they're not like I'm going to come in here now and start building tomorrow. They're like, this is what we want to build in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
They knew the step was to go through rezoning. They didn't have their plans down. They were kind of, even at the meeting, they said, we're looking at maybe this type of a building or this type of a building.
But this doesn't affect what they were talking about the other night, or affect them probably to the positive.
It would. As we mentioned, one of the questions that was asked by one of the citizens that was here is, when you change a rule, the rule changes effective that date going forward. It's not based on, because we couldn't say, well, when did that property rezone and when did that rezone? We would just go back with the calendar and say, with the help of staff and Brian, say, what date did that change come in? That's when the rules were. So everybody, when they walk in, they know what's the current rules today. They know that's what they're able to develop to.
And that would only be effective when it's signed off by the minister.
Correct, yeah. Whenever it's finally approved, yeah.
Councillor McDougall and Councillor Snow.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. I guess I need to know, we just went through a previous rezoning just here a few minutes ago. How will this be affected? Because we've already talked to the residents.
They were just looking for through 8 units. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Their question was, they were only allowed to build, you guys revised, and that's in the R3, that's
Right.
not in the R4.
Right.
And we pulled that out of the R4 because a lot of times if people come in wanting to put that type of a row house in, most of the neighbors were okay with that. They weren't okay if it got changed to allow a big apartment building. So you guys pulled that out and made it in the R3. So that previous one is in R3. This doesn't apply. This is just in the R4.
Right, so I just wanted to clarify for the residents that we're not doing one thing here, and then once we approve this, they can come in down the road
Correct.
and get a bigger unit, so.
And that's why we like we mentioned last time, a couple of times it came in and people brought forward the not going to say the issue, they're basically saying we can build this different than here. Once we had a number of them come in, we thought we should relook at our rules. And like I say, those rules came about in 97 or 98, thereabouts, when the zoning was redone. And we didn't really test that, I'll say, category or stratosphere of the rules because we weren't getting buildings more than a 12-unit building at that time.
Councillor Snow.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. I guess my concern is anything that's been previously rezoned. So one of the number one issues we hear as councillors, or when we're going through rezoning, is increased traffic. And then, so we go through the rezoning process based on what was allowed, but now, as we're increasing, it's obviously gonna increase the traffic, or the number of people that could live in one area. So, any of our traffic reports that we've done, or anything that we've based our decision to rezone anything previously, is not really accurate if we're now increasing the traffic. So let's say Elm Perry, or if we're talking about the Hippenstalls Corner, so I think Kim Shalev's question was, how's that affect that lot across from her? And one of the issues that was raised there was, increased traffic. So I'm just wondering how that jives for anything that we've rezoned R4, and based decisions on information at that time, but now it's sort of changing. That would be my concern. Higher density areas seems to be needed for sure. It seems to be the way things are progressing, but I'm a little bit concerned about already zoned based on information that we're provided that might not totally be accurate now, if that makes sense.
We'll use that one example. You couldn't get 3 busier streets to abut a major development. You got Water Street, Greenwood Drive, that are both collector and busy streets. Let's take an example. We said if we're allowing 20 and it went to 24, that's so minimal incremental, going from 20 to 24, increased traffic compared to, so it's not a major concern. It's going from the vacant lot to 20. Yes, it's going to be in that localized area, but going from 20 to 24, like in some of these examples, you're not talking a bigger incremental in traffic, and especially when you consider the entire area or the entire street.
And
So it's not as big of a concern for us as far as, we're not saying going from an R1 to an R4, we're just adjusting the R4.
Right.
The R1 would have, 8, 10 single
and would you
families.
feel the same, say, for Perry and Elm, like the adjustment's not gonna be significant? Like, I'm just basing
In
on.
Perry and Elm, we want to get into the details there. Like, that's why I don't like to get into particular ones, but we'll speak about these. An R4 development in that location is way safer than the existing situation that's there. You got 8, 10, 15 driveways that all back out onto the street. There's nothing from the corner down but driveway, driveway, driveway. By them demolishing everything down and making it come out of one parking lot, drastically safer for everyone walking or pedestrians.
And I guess I'm not disagreeing, Aaron. This is the questions we're gonna
Ask
see
away,
because
yeah.
we're changing a little bit, right? So people, that's a concern that legitimately comes forward from our residents, is how's this gonna affect our house and traffic? So I just wanna be able to have those answers, or a good understanding of how that does affect it, so.
And if it went from, I think, I'd have to look back to
Yeah.
what the people, I don't like to hold them to it, because they say until they go back and see what the market dictates in year 2 when they decide to build, whether it's more one family or one bedroom or 2 bedrooms. But again, I think they were talking, even though they were allowed 24, they were still thinking 18.
Yeah.
But still, to go to 18 to 20 is not gonna be, or 22 is not gonna be a larger difference as far as when you say how many vehicles can safely go on a local residential street, to have that increase from 1% on R4 existing. It is a bigger jump, yes, to go from R1 to R4, but we're talking a tweak in the R4 itself.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor McFeely. I have a question that I want to clarify, that in our earlier discussions, when we talked about this application for the change, it's not going to be retroactive for other former applications. It will be based on the date that it's either decided upon moving forward.
Correct, yep. So basically, when someone walks in, this is the current rules we have, and if they change, we evaluate. Now, someone may, as they bring forward to you guys and say, look, I want to be considered here. I got an application that was already in and haven't started building yet. But for us, it's whenever the rules come in that are effective the date when someone comes in to actually, when we want to issue a permit, or something.
But just to be clear, once R4 zone is amended, it's retroactive to all the R4 zones.
But I think it's not going back. We're not going back. We're just going forward. I think what she's saying retroactive is talking about somebody that had something already, could put more units in.
No, it hasn't had an application in, but if there's an empty parcel of land that's zoned R4,
Yes.
it would be under the new rules.
Correct.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understood understood that, but I just thought there was kind of a gray area there that just needed to be verified, and I wanted to be sure if people are asking
Sure, yeah.
that it's moving forward on the date that it's, yeah.
Councillor Campbell.
I'll just mention that development I have up in the end of McEwen has the 30 units backing out on the road. Every one of them separate driveways.
He has, I think, 2 6s and a 5 on McEwen Road. The other ones are in off of, and they'll have, there's a public street in behind, and every unit that was proposed would be in a parking lot off of that. But yes, he does have 12, 7, is it 2 6s and a 7, 12, 17 units that are going to back out onto McEwen Road.
Yeah, because everyone was thinking that it was going to be just the one driveway out.
Not the 6-unit buildings, because they're not going to be a shared, they're going to be individual ownership. They're going to be subdivided off. He put block walls in there he can sell one to each one of his, like that partition wall in between there. Everyone would have their own driveway. The ones in off of will be one building and not be subdivided. Each building will be one entity. You could each buy a 10 or 20 unit building, whatever size building he decides to go with. And that'll be one shared parking lot, one access off of that new street, Foxland Cortez.
And I think you mentioned that they were good enough to add some pavement to McEwen plus Kirby.
Whenever they did that
Developers
section
did.
there, yes, they had 17 driveways, and they're going to have to put 17 culverts in and access between them all. They asked if they could widen it, and then just, instead of putting culverts in everywhere, widen it, curb it, and add to the storm system on the street. They did that with our permissions on the street. I guess for one thing, we get it wider to our collector street that we didn't have in that section. So yes, they did that beyond what they're required to do.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we have the recommendation on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. And for planning board, the vote.
The recommendation to bring it
The
to council.
recommendation, I'll read it again because it's been a couple of minutes. The proposed text amendments to the City of Summerside zoning bylaw for the R4 development standards and the revision of the definition of a duplex amendments attached were recommended to be approved by council. And
On what date?
June 1st.
June 1st, yeah. And it was moved by, I think, Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. So that recommendation will go to council on June 1st. And our final item on the planning board agenda tonight is a mobile sales establishment application from Terra Arsenal. The supporting explanation. The purpose of the application is to allow a mobile sales establishment high in the hog to operate at 245 Heather Moyse Drive, the Harbour Quay site, from May to October, weather permitting. The proposed hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday. Background, this will be Ms. Arsenault's second year of operating in the city. The location being proposed is owned by the Summerside Port Corporation. The map is attached showing the lot 309401. Mobile sales establishment means a business located in a motorized vehicle or movable structure that is towed or moved by a motorized vehicle and where all the goods, wares, or foodstuff that are offered for sale are contained entirely within the motorized vehicle or movable structure, but does not include a lunch truck. The report under Section 13, City of Summerside Licensing Bylaw CS-21, the bylaw states the following. Item number 13, mobile sales establishment license. A, any person or company seeking a license to operate a mobile sales establishment in the city shall make application therefore to the council. B, licenses may be granted for a mobile sales establishment to conduct business on a maximum of 2 locations in the city, and each application shall be accompanied by a letter of permission from the owners of the property on which the mobile sales establishment will be located. C, council shall allow or refuse the application based upon considerations of safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as deemed appropriate. D, council may attach terms and conditions to the approval of the license if granted, including but not limited to 1, hours and days of operation, 2, health code requirements, 3, litter control, 4, approved locations. E, the license for a mobile sales establishment shall be valid for the calendar year in which the application is made only. A new application is required to council for each calendar year. F, no appeal shall lie from a decision of council respecting a mobile sales establishment license. Staff comment. 1, Ms. Arsenault will provide written permission from the Summerside Port Corporation, Inc. prior to the licensing being issued. Staff review. City staff support the application received from Tara Arsenault to operate a mobile sales establishment high on the hog at 245 Heather Moyce Drive, property owned by Summerside Port Corporation, Inc. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. So the planning board recommendation, the application received from Tara Arsenault to operate the mobile sales establishment high on the hog at 245 Heather Moyce Drive, property owned by Summerside Port Authority, be recommended to be approved by council, and we'll ask for a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Adams. Any comments or questions?
I have a question, because, and it's not about this particular mobile or food truck, but the mobile food court downtown, are all of these, they're all planning to go in the same place here, correct? Yeah, okay, I just wanted to, because as we're doing them and it all looks to be in the same location, and I know that we've, but I just want, I'm sure people out there might be wondering, so I thought I should just bring that up. Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
I just am wondering or thinking aloud on some of the food establishments, the stationary ones. Has there been any comments heard from any of those folks that have year-round businesses? Or I'm thinking of the farmers market where some of the vendors are in there for food. I just wonder, like I just wonder if people have made any questions or comments.
The only knowledge they'd have of these applications would be through planning board. There's no notification process. To date, we haven't got any calls from any businesses regarding.
I've certainly never heard any comment from anybody on them. So
I believe in a former meeting with downtown Summerside, there was, when this basically was in the works and being talked about, I remember the executive director said that there were some questions, but I've been kind of watching to see if anything was going to come forward formally, and I haven't heard anything, so that's why I'm asking. But I believe downtown Summerside did have some questions or comments. In particular, the market vendors.
We haven't heard of them.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure it was on record that it was brought up.
I think every one of these vendors has been operating in Summerside for the last number of years.
Oh, no, I agree.
But they're just decided to localize in one location, maybe in a different location than they were over the years based on development or
sure.
activity on the previous sites, but it hasn't been an increase in total number of units who are allowed, or the same people have been pretty much coming back year after year.
And I guess I just want to clarify, I'm not against one way or the other. I just wanted, being the counselor for that area, wanted to make sure that it was brought up, because I think there were some questions directed to downtown Summerside, and I've been watching to hear, and I haven't heard anything back. So, okay, thank you.
the only comment I would have before I kind of call the question here would, and I think I've made this comment before, but it doesn't seem to get traction. I really wonder the need for these to come back to council if they're, I can see if they're a first-time applicant, but if they're an applicant in good standing, I don't know why we don't give staff the authority to approve returning applicants. And maybe it's something that Policy Review Committee could take a look at in terms of changing, if it requires a bylaw change or something like that. But it just seems to me to be dealing with these same ones over and over again. They're all in good standing, and that it's a little bit redundant. But anyways, Councillor Snow.
I would agree with you. The only, I guess, thing I would say is if they were changing locations or there was something along that line where it might be a concern of somebody in the area. But if it sounds like we have identified area that a lot of food trucks are going to go to, hopefully, and if they're returning, then it makes a lot of sense that unless there was an issue, we wouldn't need to review it. But
No. Anyways, perhaps we have the CAO to make a note on that so we can take a look at that. So with that, excuse me.
A resident had asked me after they seen the placement of the pods, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but now that we're on the food court area, the placement of the pods are like butting against each other, so they asked if there was going to be some glass or something put between it, like there would be at a restaurant if booths were back to back. So I said that I would ask about that, so maybe we'll make note.
I don't know if anybody has beyond my pay level.
Exactly,
We'll
so we'll just say we asked the question. And
I think because it's outdoors, it may not be, but do you know what I mean? I think outdoors is a whole lot different than inside, so I'm not sure if there's
just said I'd ask the
that,
question.
I don't know either, but.
I think for us, we're just looking at the land use and the other levels of government, look at the health regulations as far as whenever they go to actually set up, they'll go through procedures that they have, hand washing and all those other things. So I'm sure they'll have to, but yes,
That's part of the resolution, I think, anyway, isn't it, that they have to meet the health.
Have to meet the health regulations.
yeah, and it's regardless if it was our role or not, it's still their higher level rule or laws, so they would have to comply regardless. But yes, it is noted in there.
Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely, and I would just say that I agree with your point there earlier about, if somebody's coming to reapply, as long as the location is the same and the owners are the same, I would support that. And I just wanted to add to Deputy Mayor's point that it was in the media too, as far as this. So just that was another. I think CBC carried it, and so although we didn't specifically notify, it is out there. So yeah.
So then people were given the opportunity if they had any questions, so that's
There was
good.
an opportunity, yeah.
Okay,
Not
great.
that
Thank you.
people have to subscribe to one or another media, but it was out there publicly in a media's form, so, yeah.
Okay, seeing no further lights, then we will, I'll now read the recommendation once again, so everybody knows what they're voting on. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. The application received from Terra Arsenal to operate a mobile sales establishment high in the hog at 245 Heather Moist Drive, property owned by Summerside Port Authority Inc., be recommended to be approved by council. So planning board members, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried, and that concludes the.
And that'll be coming to council, sorry, when?
June 1st?
June 1st and that one
June
too.
1st, yeah. So I would welcome a motion for adjournment for planning board. So moved.
Just before you do, could I ask a question, sorry.
Sure.
June 1st, will that be sufficient time? When do they plan to open this court? I mean, if we have a council meeting planned before that, is there any way we could approve it before that, or? Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, if maybe it's not going to be ready until June 1st, the food court.
We're not aware of any date announced for the start of the food court.
Okay.
No.
Thank
It's
you.
not, I mean, they've done some water and sewer stuff down there, I think, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of activity there yet, so. So a motion to adjourn was moved by Councillor Adams, so seconded by Councillor Ramsey, so we are adjourned, folks. Thank you.
Well, we have 10 minutes before we start the next special council meeting, so, and it's scheduled for 6:30, so we should be, take the 10 minutes in case some public members want to be here.
Yeah,
So
and
we-
for the benefit of those that are watching the live stream at home right now, this meeting is adjourned, so we're going to stop this stream and create a new link to access the special council meeting at 6:30. So it'll take a few minutes to do that, but we'll be ready to go for 6:30.
Thank you very much, Brian. So just give us a signal when we're unhooked.